brothers and sisters. Welcome once again. We are so privileged to be able to join with you, to fellowship with you here from the nation of Israel, and specifically from here in the heart of the Sharon Valley in Netanya. Here is a center for Messianic Jewish people to worship and fellowship and study the scripture together. And my name is Evan Thomas. I pastor this congregation called Beit Asaph. We're delighted to welcome you here into our midst. And today I want to begin to share with you a series of teachings close to my heart that I hope will be of help to you, of benefit to the Christian community. We have a tough challenge in front of us, but I believe a great subject. And the subject is the comparison between the state of Israel, the internationally recognized state of Israel, comparing it with this term, the nation of Israel. Here I'm using it deliberately as a term, a biblical term, the nation of Israel, or Am Israel, as we find in the scriptures, the nation of Israel referring to the Jewish people. So this is my subject, and over these 4 programs I hope we can develop an understanding that we are able to perhaps separate these 2 terms and understand them better, and yet see how they interlock, they're interphased. To tackle the subject, it is important that we first carefully define the terms that we are comparing. My experience has shown me that there is, in fact, enormous confusion between these terms amongst Christians, and even within my national community, the Messianic Jews of Israel. And this confusion, unfortunately, leads to errors in our interpretation of Scripture, and in fact can lead to hostile reactions that threaten the unity of the body of Messiah, something that we hold in high regard. To know me, Evan Thomas, there are 2 things that are very, very, very foundational to my faith and my following of Yeshua. One, that fellowship with one another within the body is a sacred act, and that the body of Messiah is precious in the eyes of God. So to understand what I share with you, it's important to understand where I'm coming from. The subject of Israel in general is of enormous interest to Christianity, I find, whenever I travel, whenever Christians visit the Holy Land. But it's also a subject that is of enormous controversy. Israel as a subject is all too often confuses politics and theology. They all get mixed up together. The subject of Israel also polarizes those believers that take an interest in what is happening in the Middle East. And it polarizes them, in a sense, into taking one position or another. Let me explain. Perhaps by way of example, and a good example that I can think of occurred several years ago when another brother from the local body of Messiah here in Israel, in this case, an Arab Christian colleague, Dr. Salim Munaya, and I were invited by the Archbishop of the Church of Wales to come to the United Kingdom and to spend a week with members of his clergy. We were to work just with the priests and official members of his national church, who were teachers and theologians and local pastors. We were to come and spend a week, a solid, intensive week with these men and women, and we discovered that they were so divided on this issue, the subject of Israel, And so much so that in fact it was threatening the very integrity of the national church. It was a fascinating week for Salim and I, and as we began to quickly realize just how polarized the different parts of the church were, the pro-Israel lobby and the pro-Palestinian lobby, we began, of course, by asking a lot of questions to understand the theological background that provided a basis to this. We also had to understand some of the life experiences of the men and women that we were working with. And it was enormously challenging, as you can imagine. But what was enormously challenging to them was that the fact that they had to deal with their two brothers from the Holy Land, from Israel, one a Jew, one an Arab, that felt deeply about the unity of the body of Messiah. We were completely open with them about our differences, even on political issues, our differences on sociological issues that we saw around us, issues like discrimination and so on. And in some cases, they were also seeing that we were openly different in our theological positions, especially when it came to issues of the end times. What was enormously challenging, I keep using this word enormously, but what was so challenging with them, for them was the fact that despite our differences, Salim and I clearly were friends, clearly loved one another, clearly had a great joy in our fellowship with one another. And so as we began to speak about our respective narratives, our stories, our peoples, and the effect of the conflict in which we live out our faith, I think many were so challenged and very encouraged and began to look at their own positions regarding the subject of Israel from a different perspective. You need to know that, of course, this controversy on the subject is not isolated to countries like Wales. You probably have the same issues in your own nations, and certainly this controversy is in our homeland. The same subject also greatly threatens the unity of Arab and Jewish believers in the land. Leaders from both of our communities can testify to this as we continually battle against it. So let's launch into our subject. And as I said, we will need to define these terms, State of Israel and Nation of Israel. Firstly, State of Israel, or in Hebrew, in our Hebrew language, Medinat Israel. This refers to, in this I'm referring to the internationally recognized nation state that was founded in 1948. You can look on your maps and in your atlases and see where it's located in association with the Arab nations around us. You'll see that we are situated in the heart of the Middle East, right on the Mediterranean coast, and sharing common borders with Egypt in the south, Jordan, and then further north, Syria and Lebanon. The first two countries that are our neighbors, Egypt and Jordan, we fortunately enjoy peace treaties with, albeit a little shaky at this time with all the troubles that are within the Middle East. Internally, we have territories controlled by the Palestinian Authority, those within the West Bank, around well-known cities for you, Bethlehem and Jericho. And in the south, in the Gaza Strip, is controlled by Hamas, also well known internationally. These borders between these territories are in fact security borders, and they're there in place because of long-standing intractable conflicts. Sooner rather than later, these security borders may in fact become internationally recognized borders, forming an independent state of Palestine. We don't know whether it will, and if it does, how long it will take until this actually happens. It also doesn't matter whether we believe in a one or two state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But what we do know is, should this happen, all of us will be greatly challenged, both politically and theologically. Israel itself is a democracy, though it is known as a Jewish democracy, one that tends to favor its Jewish majority. Our present population is 7.8 million, of which 75% are Jewish, 20.5% are Arab, and of those, over 98% of the Arab population is Muslim. And then there are 4.5% of others, non-Arabs, non-Jews. With a significant discrepancy between the respective growth rates, 2.6% per year in the Arab sector compared with 1.7% per year in the Jewish sector, this ratio is going to drastically change over the next 20 years, a thing that politicians are very aware of. Another interesting fact I recently discovered was that although Jews, Arabs, and the small others minority can hold citizenship of Israel, there is legally no such thing as Israeli nationality. What do I mean by this? On his or her official documents like passports or IDs, under nationality, it is interesting to see that it will be written Jew, Muslim, or Christian, not Israeli. Nationality relates to an ethnic or religious category. Religious identity within the state of Israel is enormously important, and that's what the point I'm trying to make. The roots and history of all three of these monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all converge in Israel, more specifically in the city of Jerusalem. This issue of identity is an enormous one for us. Let me give a brief example, just to close with this first message. When our daughter Sarah was 11 years old, we as a family went to the farthest corners of the earth from Israel to New Zealand for a 1-year sabbatical. We went to rest and to study. And during that year, we enrolled our 11-year-old daughter, Sarah, in a small local school. And on that first day, what did Sarah do? She went out and around all the girls of her age group in the class, and it was quite natural for her to simply ask them, "What do you believe? What is your religion?" Because back home here in Israel, this would be a normal thing to ask, or a normal thing by which we identify one another. Well, you can imagine the stir it caused in this classroom amongst these 11-year-old girls in far away New Zealand. "What do you believe?" she asked them. Most said, "What do you mean? What do we believe?" And one youngster simply said to her, "Well, I think we're Catholic. Um, uh, we believe in Mary, but um, I really don't know what we believe. And it caused this enormous stir amongst her peer group. And Sarah came home to us very confused, very upset, because somehow she wasn't able in that first day to find her place and where she fitted in to these groups. So here what I'm explaining is simply by illustration that in our community here, the issues of identity are very important. And how we belong to this nation state of the state of Israel, and within these ethnic or religious groups, is something that is with us day by day. Thank you.